After Aaron was born, Brian quit his job. Brian, who named himself a travel writer, hardly worked and lived off my income, driving around the country at his leisure. One evening, after returning from a trip, Brian came home with a young woman holding a baby. "This is my child and my lover, Tiffany. I don't need a son, so he's yours to keep. We're getting a divorce." He thrust the signed divorce papers at me and spoke in a rough tone. "I'll come to pick it up in a week. Make sure you sign it by then." A week later, Brian and Tiffany reappeared, and Aaron and I told them, "You can't divorce Mom, you know? Because the car cost $80,000. You haven't paid it back yet." Brian's cheeks twitched. "Besides, Dad, you're living off Mom's earnings. Maybe you should postpone the divorce until you can support yourself?" Tiffany was taken aback. Brian stammered out excuses. I smirked to myself. "Now, Brian, you will pay for everything you've done as you please. I am Sherry, a 50-year-old housewife. I live with my husband Brian of the same age and our junior high school son, Aaron. I met Brian through an acquaintance and started dating. Brian was always confident and active, with a wealth of topics and great at conversation. Spending time with him was fun. I thought it would be wonderful to walk through life with such a person. So when he proposed at a stylish restaurant, I was overjoyed. However, less than a year later, I regretted getting married. I want a child soon. Given our age, yes. We had a honeymoon baby and felt over the moon. In hindsight, that might have been the happiest time. During morning sickness, when I couldn't do chores or prepare meals, Brian never blamed me and took care of me. "Sherry, do you think you could eat chicken soup? Also, white fish and fruits are good for you." Brian, who wasn't good at cooking, bought ready-made soup, ready-made food, and fruits from the local supermarket and brought them to me as I was lying in bed, to prevent me from feeling sick. He ate his meals in the dining room and came to pick up the dishes after eating, even washing them. On his days off, he would do the laundry and cleaning. "Brian, I'm sorry for the trouble." "Thank you always." When I thanked him, Brian smiled and gently stroked my head. It's natural for spouses to support each other. "You're living for two, don't overdo it." He was diligent, kind, and a regular employee at a large company. I truly felt fortunate to have married him. However, the end of happiness came suddenly. When labor started early in the morning, Brian took a day off to take me to the hospital and waited outside the delivery room for the baby's birth. Eventually, the baby was safely born. The midwife went to Brian with the baby wrapped in a blanket and said with a smile, "Congratulations. It's a healthy boy." At that moment, Brian's face changed. "What, not a girl? It's a boy." Brian's expression changed from one filled with anticipation to one of intense disappointment. After moving to the hospital room, Brian sighed deeply and muttered in an annoyed voice, "Ah, a boy." At that time, I hadn't realized the seriousness of the situation, and tried to console Brian with a wry smile. "Brian, you wanted a girl, didn't you? I think the doctor even said it might be a boy." "It's disappointing, isn't it? I've heard there are still families who desire a male heir. However, neither my mother-in-law nor Brian seemed to strongly want a boy. Although we asked for the sex because Brian wanted to know, I honestly didn't mind either way. I dreamed of becoming a father to a girl." Brian's eyes widened. "Boys are smelly, dirty, not cute at all. Why didn't you give birth to a girl?" Upset by his harsh words, I retorted, "That's not something you can choose. Even practicing gender selection doesn't guarantee 100% success. It's our precious baby, the gender shouldn't matter." "How can it not matter?"
Ah.
Damn. Seriously, I don't need a boy. After saying that, Brian left the hospital room and never came back. He didn't contact me, and I had to leave the hospital alone. My parents' home was too far away to rely on, so I reluctantly called my mother-in-law for a pickup. Brian was really looking forward to having a girl. I understand why he would complain. I explained the situation, but as expected, my mother-in-law took Brian's side. You're not going back to your parents' house, right? I can come and help if you want. Thank you. I'll contact you if there's anything I need. I politely declined with a forced smile. It's a 30-minute drive from my in-laws' house. I'd rather do the parenting with my husband, even if it's busy, than rely on a mother-in-law who only has snide remarks to make. I thought Brian would soon get over it and start doting on the baby. But I was naive. A hellish solo parenting life began. Before giving birth, we had fun imagining what life with a baby would be. Picking out baby furniture online with Brian and reading articles and books about babies. However, as soon as Brian found out it was a boy, he seemed to lose interest. After coming home from the hospital, he left everything from naming the baby to the minutiae of care to me, effectively abandoning his responsibilities. Brian, could you hold Aaron for a bit? He's been crying so much. I can't get anything done, not even cooking or cleaning. Even when I begged Brian as he came home, he coldly turned away from Aaron without a glance. Can't you see I'm tired from work? Be more considerate. There's no dinner? Then I'll just eat out. Taking care of the baby is the mother's job, right? I'll overlook the mess in the house. Just make sure to do the laundry. I'll be in trouble without anything to wear. Even as Aaron cried and screamed, Brian ignored him and played with his phone. No matter how much I asked, he wouldn't change diapers or take care of baths or feedings. Of course, getting up when he cried at night was out of the question. One evening, as Aaron started crying while we were watching TV, Brian showed his irritation. It's so noisy, he's been crying non-stop. He seems sleepy, but he won't sleep even if I hold him. He'll stop crying if you take him for a walk. Go outside. I couldn't believe my ears. It was February, and it was 8 p.m. You want me to go for a walk when it's snowing? Are you sane? When I snapped at him, Brian twisted his mouth into a sneer. Driving is a waste of gas. Maybe he'll stop crying quickly because it's cold. Furious at such an inconsiderate comment from a father, I grabbed the car keys while holding Aaron, slammed the living room door, and left the house. I put Aaron in the child's seat, drove around the neighborhood for a while, and sighed in relief when I heard him snoring from the back seat. After returning home, I put him to bed, ignoring Brian, who was laughing at the TV. Day by day, my distrust of Brian grew. One afternoon, Brian came home early. You're home early today. As I fed Aaron his baby food, Brian nonchalantly announced while taking off his jacket. I quit my job. Oh. What? I was stunned. I've been thinking, I'm not cut out to be an employee. I should start a company or work as a freelancer, using my talents. From now on, I'll live freely without being tied down by a company. He spoke with pride, and I felt dizzy. Tentatively, I asked, do you have plans for your next job? I love driving, right? And I won first place in an essay contest in 3rd grade. I think I have talent. So, I'll wander around the country and write travelogues. I nearly fainted at Brian's shining eyes. He had been working in sales for 12 years, and now he was switching to being a writer? Brian hadn't even written a blog, and the computer in his study was just for show. He must have been inspired by some internet article. Don't look at me like that. In 2 years, I'll be making over $100,000 a year. It's a job anyone can do, so a talented person like me will definitely become a bestseller. Watching Aaron eat with his hands while Brian talks about himself. I alternate my gaze between them. I had planned to return to work once Aaron turned 1. Never imagining I'd end up supporting an unemployed husband. That afternoon. First, I need to get the right setup. Full of enthusiasm, Brian went to an electronics store to buy the latest model computer. While I was putting Aaron to bed and washing the dishes, I received a call from my mother-in-law. Reluctantly, I answered. "Hello? What have you been telling him?" My mother-in-law shouted right off the bat. "I don't understand what you mean. To think he would have been set for life at that company. Going from a yearly salary of $80,000 to suddenly being unemployed is unthinkable." That was exactly my sentiment. Because you only pay attention to the baby. Brian quit his job from the stress. Supporting your husband is a wife's duty, isn't it? What a failure you are. If you have complaints, please speak to him. I'm busy, so I'll be hanging up now. My mother-in-law was still ranting. But I hung up and ignored any further calls or messages for a while. I was furious with Brian's selfishness, but resolved to work diligently for Aaron's sake. I had hoped that seeing me manage both household and childcare responsibilities might make Brian reflect a little, but it was futile. Brian would lock himself in his study, fiddling with his computer. Or suddenly announce he was traveling to the Northeast region, leaving without contact and returning days later. Thus, unable to rely on Brian, I used my workplace's childcare services, where they even take in sick children and worked hard. It felt more like single parenting than solo parenting. Full-time work while raising a young child was challenging. But sharing parenting woes with colleagues who were also parents provided some solace. Thanks to my salary funding his writing courses, Brian eventually started earning $300 a month. Still, the household finances depended solely on my income since Brian would spend his earnings as pocket money. I was the one paying for gasoline. Then one day, Brian returned from a trip to Florida in a brand new red sports car. What? Where did this car come from? I fell in love with it and bought it on the spot. Can you believe it was only $50,000 with this coolness? I felt like I was about to turn inside out. $50,000. Yeah, I got bored of the old car after 2 years. This one's my new partner. A writer has to ride in style, right? Suppressing a smirk from Brian, I ask him while pressing my temples. Wait a minute. How did you pay for it? You have no savings, right? Don't worry, it's on an 84-month loan. You can afford $600 a month, right? I'll be a bestseller soon, so just cover it for now. I was dumbfounded at first, but then anger surged. How can I afford $600 a month? We're barely making ends meet. Whose fault do you think our financial struggles are? Then Brian twisted his face and snapped. All you talk about is money, money. How shallow. When did you become such a woman? Support your husband's dreams more. You're too practical, it's boring. With that, he stormed off to his room. Dad, are you back? Aaron asked after waking up from his nap. Yes, but he seems busy with work and went to his room. Say welcome back when he comes down. Okay. Hey, Mom. How long will Dad stay at home? I don't know. I'll ask him later. My heart aching at Aaron's lonely smile. Even as Aaron started daycare, Brian remained distant and cold, responding only when spoken to but never initiating conversation or making eye contact. I pondered if divorce might be the better option. Yet I worried about Aaron feeling responsible for their separation. 15 years since Brian quit his job, his monthly income remained meager. The reason was clear. Brian had discovered the joy of online gaming and prioritized it over work. Even when a substantial income comes in, it quickly vanishes on gaming credits. And the rest is spent on clothes or going to nightclubs. On the rare occasion Brian brings home a souvenir, he boasts about it for a while. "That cookie I bought the other day was delicious, wasn't it? It's because of my job that we can enjoy such tasty things. You should be more grateful." After the sports car was finally paid off, he immediately sold it for another new car. I initially protested, "We need you to contribute to the household expenses. As a father, maybe you should spend more time at home. Limit your spending on hobbies." But Brian would become furiously angry, veins bulging on his forehead. "You're mocking me for my low salary. You're looking down on me. That's not it. I just wish you'd act more like a father." Speaking with patience, Brian responded in a harsh tone, still with a face full of anger. "Next year, I'll definitely be making $100,000 a year. Then we'll have plenty, I'll spend time at home, and I'll contribute to the household. Just wait until then without complaining." After repeated arguments, I eventually gave up on discussions. Perhaps viewing his father as a cautionary tale, Aaron grew up to be honest and kind. Always considerate of my tiredness from work. He would help with household chores. And even put a blanket on me when I fell asleep on the sofa. Or surprise me with handmade dinners and bouquets for birthdays and Mother's Day. One evening, while I was preparing dinner, I heard the front door open. Thinking Aaron had returned from cram school, I was surprised to hear Brian's voice speaking to someone. Could it be a guest? Removing my apron, I went to greet them and froze. Brian was cozying up to a young woman holding a baby. "Welcome back." The woman, dressed provocatively and wearing heavy makeup. Likely a worker from a nightclub Brian frequented. But why did he bring her to our house? The woman who entered the house with Brian pinched her nose and marched into the kitchen to peek into the pot. She sported a pitiful smile and sneered in a nasal voice. "Ew. It smells like garlic." "Brian, it's going to stick to my clothes." "Sorry, Tiffany." "Hey, Sherry, do something about it." "It's okay, I can bear it." "Oh, are you having stew for dinner?" How modest. "Brian, the Italian full course was delicious." Brian's eyes crinkled as he listened to the woman boast. "That place is great. My wife here likes to keep things simple, fits her perfectly." "Oh, Brian, you're terrible." As they laughed together, my irritation grew. Thanks to Brian's modest salary, I have been without Italian cuisine for 15 years. Biting back my retort, I asked Brian. "And you are?" Tiffany, with a challenging look, cheerfully introduced herself. "Nice to meet you, I'm Tiffany, Brian's wife." "Hey, you're getting ahead of yourself." Brian glanced at Tiffany and the baby, a doting smile spreading across his face. "This is Tiffany, my mistress, and our child. She gave me a daughter. Cute, right? She has Brian's nose and everything." The baby, dressed in pink, was cradled in Tiffany's arms, gazing at me with round eyes. "Oh, is that so? And what do you want?" I asked coolly, and Brian responded with a smirk. "The son is yours. We're getting a divorce." He placed a signed divorce paper on the table, announcing with a huff. "I'll come to pick it up in a week. Make sure you sign it by then. Brian is fed up with you. I'll be taking the wife position." Tiffany, ever the high-handed mistress, provoked disbelief. "Brian, where are you going? This is your home, isn't it? I don't want to be with you anymore. Once you and Aaron leave, I'll come back." His outrageous reasoning left me speechless. The two of them left with laughter, their modified sports car's loud exhaust fading into the distance. I, momentarily stunned, eventually focused on the divorce papers. As I looked at them, rage boiled within me. Brian had abandoned his role as a father simply because the child was a boy. He quit his job on a whim, sparing his meager income for himself, and now demanded a divorce because he had a mistress and a child? I tore up the divorce papers, throwing them into the trash can, seething with anger. How dare you? How selfish can you be? I clenched my fists. If that's how you feel, then I have plans of my own. You're going to pay for everything you've done as you pleased up until now. A week later, Brian returned with Tiffany, without the baby, presumably to avoid a dramatic scene. Erin, who greeted them, saw Brian's slightly awkward expression. "Hello there, I'll be your new mom soon." "Nice to meet you." Ignoring Tiffany's overly enthusiastic greeting, Erin looked directly at Brian. "Dad, aren't you supposed to say I'm home when you come back?" Brian, with a sullen face, ignored Erin's comment, holding hands with Tiffany and seating her beside him at the dining table. As I was making coffee, Brian addressed me in a rough tone. "I don't need coffee. Give me the divorce papers instead. Come now. We're in for a long discussion, might as well have something to drink." I smiled as I prepared coffee for four and placed it on the table. Erin sat across from Brian and I faced Tiffany. I debated how much to tell Erin, but decided he was mature enough being in 9th grade. So I laid everything out for him. After a sip of coffee, I casually mentioned, "I threw away the divorce papers." "What? You don't want to divorce me?" Erin looked at Brian with a mix of disdain and disbelief. "You can't divorce Mom, can you? Because you still owe me $80,000 for the 2 new cars." Brian's face paled. "I won't let you forget." "When exactly will you repay me?" "I covered the entire cost, after all." "Right, Dad. And how will you afford to live if you remarry this person?" Erin chuckled. "Considering you're living off Mom's earnings, maybe you should postpone the divorce until you can support yourself?" Brian became visibly flustered. Tiffany, wide-eyed, turned to look at Brian's profile. "What? What's going on, Brian?" It's just family matters, Tiffany. You don't need to know." As Brian struggled to explain, I showed him the printed payment statements. "Look, this is for the previous car, paid in 84 installments. And this is for the new car's payments. Tiffany, do you understand? All paid from my card." Tiffany tilted her head in confusion. "Why aren't you paying these yourself, Brian? You said you were making $100,000 a year with a management position at Harrison Corporation." Erin and I burst into laughter at the same time. "Really? Carrying around a business card from 15 years ago? That's practically fraud. You're unemployed now." We both couldn't help but burst into laughter at the absurdity. "No. I'm a freelance writer. Self-proclaimed travel web writer, huh? Earning less than a high schooler's part-time job. From an annual salary of $80,000 to what, about $4,000 now?" Tiffany's eyes widened in shock. "What, $4,000? Yes, look here." "Stop, you fool." I showed Tiffany the bank statement, revealing monthly deposits of $400 or $500 from the same company, leaving Tiffany speechless. "So, all those brand clothes, shiny leather shoes, and the luxury sports car, even the meals you've treated me to, were all paid for by your wife?" "That's right. Take a look at this." I leaned forward to show Tiffany the credit card statements. He took my card, which I barely use, and started spending without telling me. I'll pay it back later. It's fine, we're family. Brian raised his voice. In 2 or 3 years, I'll be earning over $100,000 a year. You believe in me, unlike these two, right? Brian looked at Tiffany with a vague smile. You said the same thing when Aaron was a baby. 15 years later, nothing has changed. Next to me, Aaron nodded in agreement. You can move in with Tiffany or remarry her. Just as long as you pay for the car and the unauthorized card usage. And don't forget, you'll also have to pay compensation and child support. Quiet. I get it. Brian, yelling back, turned towards Tiffany while wringing his hands. So, Tiffany, you'll lend me the money to pay Sherry back, right? Let me think about it, Brian. Seeing Tiffany's reaction, I thought it perfectly reasonable. What? I'll pay it back later. We're going to be married, so it should be fine, right? Brian was trying to push through his flawed logic on a hesitant Tiffany. With a scoff of disbelief, I picked up my phone. It was time for the second phase of my revenge. By the way, Tiffany, did you accompany Brian on his recent hotspot assignment? As Tiffany awkwardly looked away, Brian, fully emboldened, gave a sly grin. Yeah, it was a beautiful place. That's nice to hear. How did you know about that? I responded with a beaming smile, directing my grin towards Tiffany. My cousin is the innkeeper there. She sent me evidence photos after seeing you two together. Opening my phone app, I placed the phone in the center of the table for everyone to see. And look who's with Tiffany in these pictures. Huh? As Tiffany froze upon seeing the photos, Brian's expression darkened ominously. Tiffany, who is this? Hey. It's a violation of privacy to take photos without permission. To Tiffany's outrage, I responded with a calm smile. Sorry about that. My cousin couldn't stand my husband's infidelity and ended up taking quite a few pictures. Meddling in other people's business. Brian. It was just a friend I bumped into. Don't worry about it. As Tiffany leaned into him, Brian shrugged her off. It was your idea to book that place. Then he suddenly tensed up. Come to think of it, you weren't there when I woke up in the middle of the night. Don't tell me you went to his room? No, that's not it. He was just a friend. While Tiffany stammered her excuses, I was barely able to hold back my laughter. I reached for a large envelope at the edge of the table and spread out several photos. The shock was evident on Tiffany's face as she let out a shriek. These photos, sent to me last year, showed a pregnant Tiffany cozying up to a man as they left an obstetrics clinic. Hey. It was just someone accompanying me. Believe me, Brian. Faced with Brian's intimidating voice, Tiffany clasped her hands together, desperately trying to make excuses. I began reading from the investigation report I had pulled from the envelope. So it was a parenting class that day. You'd expect the father to accompany you, right? Wait, isn't that baby from the other day? I thought it was Brian's. Not his, then? Tiffany fell silent, a thin smile on my face. This guy, the baby's dad, ditched you after the baby was born, right? How terrible to do that to poor Tiffany. My mocking tone made Brian stutter as he tried to defend Tiffany. Tiffany wouldn't do such a thing, would she? That kid's father being some other guy, that can't be right. I'm sorry. Tiffany murmured her apology, her voice frail. Brian, momentarily stunned, turned red with anger and embarrassment. So you lied about the baby being mine to trap me into marriage after he ran off on you? Don't mess with me. Tiffany fired back as loudly. What? You were drowning in debt and living off your wife, then lied to me. I have no reason to listen to your complaints. Tiffany then turned her anger towards me. You're awful too. Knowing he was cheating and letting him do as he pleases? Yes, that's right. After putting up with a husband who did whatever he wanted for 15 years. I figured I'd hit him with undeniable evidence and milk him for all he's worth. I let out a sardonic smile. Sending lovey-dovey messages to my phone by mistake, suddenly dressing up. Coming home reeking of women's perfume, it was all too obvious. Aaron, arms crossed, nodded in agreement. Always in such a good mood at home. Seriously, after everything Mom's done for you, how could you cheat? What kind of nerve do you have? Aaron's expression conveyed utter disbelief. I wanted to know more about his mistress, so I hired a detective. Turns out, I got a bunch of bonus photos to share with Brian. I delivered the sarcastic remark as Tiffany and Brian glared at each other. Oh yes, I'm not the type to be bossed around by a superior. You said something like that, right? Funny thing to say for someone who was fired for causing trouble. Brian's eyes widened in shock. How did you know that? I heard it from the person who introduced you to me. I let out a derisive laugh, enjoying the revelation. You were fired for going out for drinks with new employees. And then touching them in the taxi on the way home. They reported you to their superior. It serves you right. Brian trembled with rage. It's exaggerated. It was just over the clothes, and I was drunk. It's not like they lost anything. You're the worst, Dad. Aaron condemned him with a cold voice. It was unbearable when I found out about this. Probably more shocking than you not caring for me. I thought of you as a shameful person. Really? What do you think women are? Brian, I didn't know you were like that. Gross. Tiffany, looking at Brian with disgust. Huh? I don't want to hear it from someone who tried to pin another man's child on me. Brian glared sharply at Tiffany. What you did is no better. Both of you are as bad as each other. The new employees you harassed are planning to sue you, Brian. Be prepared. Brian was shocked. What? For that? They're not satisfied with just firing you. They want compensation for the emotional distress. Brian's eyes widened in disbelief. I don't have that kind of money. Brian yelled, his face turning beet red. Aaron looked on with a disheartened expression. Dad, you should take responsibility for what you've done. It's tough, Brian. No amount of money seems to be enough for you. I offered a sympathetic laugh towards Brian before turning my gaze to Tiffany. If you still want him, he's all yours. I don't want this old man. Tiffany stood up abruptly. You said you were a section chief at a major corporation earning $100,000 a year. So I thought you'd make a good father. Glaring at Brian with contempt, Tiffany rattled off rapidly. But in reality, you were just a prideful liar living off your wife. You have terrible habits with women and are covered in debt. Being with you was a loss. Give me back my time. That's my line. Brian stood up too, yelled. I don't need a woman who cheats with another man. Don't ever show your face again. Then let's break up.
Bye.
As Tiffany stormed out, Brian collapsed at the door, sobbing and lamenting. She said she loved me. How could she have a child with another man? Even if it was a girl, I wouldn't want another man's child. Seeing Brian hang his head, I sharply reprimanded him. This is what happens when you abandon your role as a father to Aaron. But want a child with your mistress. Children are not accessories. Think about Aaron's feelings for once. It's okay, Mom. I don't consider him my father. Aaron offered a lonely smile. I've considered him just a roommate for a long time. Glancing at her pathetic husband slumped on the floor, sniffling, I sighed deeply. I've completely run out of patience with you, Brian. From now on, let's communicate through a lawyer. I stated firmly. I'll file for divorce once the payments for the 2 cars I covered, the unauthorized credit card charges, and the compensation are all deposited into my account, Sherry declared. How can I pay all that at once? If I don't submit the divorce papers, I can just cancel the divorce. Lighting up with what he thought was a brilliant idea, Brian's face, smeared with tears and snot, brightened. That way, I can save on compensation and child support. Come on. Sherry, I was wrong. Let's start over. I reflexively pushed away Brian's reaching hand. Don't joke with me. Afterward, Aaron and I forcibly removed the persistently clinging Brian from their home. Following the divorce, Brian, kicked out by me, pleaded with his mother, who, concerned about public image and furious over her son's infidelity, disowned him. Thus, Brian moved into a cheap apartment and started working seriously for the first time in 15 years. Facing the barrier of age 50, he couldn't land a sales job and settled for physical labor, getting yelled at by younger supervisors while working desperately every day. Later, sued by the new employees, Brian settled out of court by selling his luxury sports car to pay for the settlement money. However, the sum didn't cover the unauthorized credit card charges, compensation, and the payment for the first car he had me cover, forcing him to accumulate more debt to settle his dues. No doubt, his earnings would be constantly chased by repayments to me, leaving him with little to nothing for himself. Of course, I also demanded compensation from Tiffany. Her parents ended up covering it and depositing the money into my account. The father of Tiffany's child was a customer at her workplace. After getting pregnant, Tiffany was fired for breaking the rules, took refuge in her parents' home but was eventually disowned by them after giving birth. Now, she leaves her baby at daycare, works at a different nightclub during the weekdays, and takes a part-time job at a restaurant on weekends, living a strenuous life. Aaron's child support is deposited into my account every month without fail. We've contracted through a lawyer to sue immediately if there's ever a delay. Now a high school freshman, Aaron is studying hard in an advanced class, aiming to become a pharmacist. I'll make sure to ease your burden once I graduate from college. Just wait, Aaron said with a smile, earning his own spending money through part-time jobs amidst his busy study schedule. Compared to the times troubled by Brian's debts, working for college tuition feels almost enjoyable. From now on, I look forward to spending fulfilling days together with my kind and reliable son. This is a quote for a 2-family house. I've poured your savings of $300,000 that you had been saving into this. What? Did you already spend that money? Be grateful. We've put it to good use. It's your fault for hiding it. Did you guys even check the name on the bank book? My name is Kim. I'm a 35-year-old office worker. I've been married to Patrick for 2 years. We met at a mixer and started dating after he made a strong approach. About a year into our smooth-sailing relationship, he proposed, and we got married. Initially, Patrick was very kind, and I thought I had married a good person. However, about a year into our marriage, Patrick's attitude began to gradually change. He was initially agreeable to sharing household chores, doing things like cleaning and laundry. Since he wasn't good at cooking, I took on that responsibility. We had a good balance with each sharing the household chores. But Patrick started saying he was tired more often, and the pace of his household work slowed down. Gradually, he stopped doing his share of the chores. Since I work too, it's tough to handle the daily cooking and also get to cleaning and laundry. Therefore, I end up doing everything in bulk over the weekend. Even though he promised to help a little, he refuses. I earn more, so it makes sense to reduce my share of the chores. Saying such, Patrick stubbornly stopped doing any household work. Around this time, he started acting more domineering, insisting on having his way in everything. His selfish behavior began to take a mental toll on me. There's another presence that troubles me, and that's my mother-in-law. She has a habit of showing up unannounced around the time I get home from work. She comes when neither the cooking is ready nor the room is tidied up, which is really troubling. Then, she goes around the house, scolding me. What is this mess? Why are you not doing the household chores? I can't believe you're letting Patrick live in such a mess. You're a failure. Coming home tired from work only to be nagged by my mother-in-law is really hard to bear. Well, actually, cleaning and laundry are supposed to be my husband's responsibilities. Explaining a situation like this doesn't help at all. What are you talking about? My son is working. He shouldn't have to do household chores at all. But I'm working too. It's different from working half-heartedly like you. Patrick is working hard, sweating it out in the rough waves of society. I work hard too. But no matter what I say, it doesn't seem to get through to my mother-in-law. She's not someone you can have a reasonable conversation with. What are you making today anyway? You have to make sure Patrick eats something nutritious. Today I'm making fried chicken, salad, and soup. That's not enough. What? That's not enough. Make 2 more dishes. But, after working all day, I can't make that much. Stop talking back to me. I wonder how you were brought up by your parents. Why do I have to be spoken to like that? I got angry and said something provocative. Aren't you the one being unreasonable by coming to our house unannounced? Didn't your parents teach you any manners? Then, my mother-in-law got angry, her eyes wide with fury. Excuse me. Who do you think you are? Don't you dare speak to me like that, you're just a daughter-in-law. And just as my mother-in-law was ranting, my husband came home. I'm home. Oh, Mom's here? Patrick, welcome back. Listen to this. Kim said such terrible things to me. I'm so hurt. Saying this, my mother-in-law started to pretend to cry. My husband believed her words and glared at me sharply. What's this, Kim? Hurting my mom like that is the worst. Wait a minute. She said hurtful things to me first? So, I just talked back a little. Then, my mother-in-law, sobbing exaggeratedly, acted as if she was the innocent one. I didn't say anything. I just wanted to give Kim some advice about household chores. But she got offensive and angry all of a sudden. What? Kim, what kind of person are you? Wait, you're just going to believe that? My mom wouldn't lie. Picking on my mom while I'm not around is cowardly. I didn't think you were such a woman. My husband completely took my mother-in-law's side and wouldn't listen to anything I said. As punishment, you're skipping dinner tonight. Mom's going to eat your dinner. What? That's... If you understand, then go to your room or go outside. My mom wouldn't want to be around you. After being told that by my husband, I had no choice but to go outside. Despite my fatigue, I had cooked dinner. Why do I have to endure this treatment? Feeling very sad, I went to a diner nearby to eat and kill some time. Not wanting to see my mother-in-law, I spent about 2 hours there and returned home late at night. My mother-in-law had already left, which was a relief. But my husband nagged me about various things. I still haven't forgiven you. My mom was really shocked. She came all the way to see how we were doing. Hearing this, I thought it was better not to argue with my husband and just apologized formally. He seemed satisfied, having made me submit. From then on, my mother-in-law would come unannounced, criticizing everything about the household chores. And when my husband came back, she would say, "I want to eat alone with Patrick," driving me out, or they would go out to eat without touching the food I made. My husband always sided with my mother-in-law, creating a situation where she would complain about me for no reason, and I would get scolded by my husband. It became so relentless and mentally exhausting that I consulted my father-in-law. He seemed unaware that my mother-in-law was frequently visiting our home, and appeared genuinely sorry. "I'm truly sorry. She always said she was going out to eat with friends, so I didn't realize." "No, it's not your fault, father. She said it was hard to manage friendships. So I've been giving her money for meals, but she hasn't offered it, has she? This is the first I've heard of it. I'm really sorry." My father-in-law apologized to me repeatedly. He promised to speak sternly to my mother-in-law, so I thought this would make things better. But soon after, my mother-in-law visited our home again and complained to me. "You're really cowardly. Telling on me to my husband. I was just checking on you and Patrick for your sake. I'm really sad." Despite her angry words, I couldn't let myself be defeated anymore. "Mother, I heard you've been receiving money from your husband every time you visit us. He gave it to you for meal expenses, but why hasn't any of that money come to us? Are you keeping all the money your husband gave you for yourself? What are you talking about? Don't say such terrible things. I always pay when I go out to eat with Patrick. But your husband said he gave you money every time. You've eaten at my house quite a few times, haven't you? What do you think your husband would think if he knew you were pocketing most of it? You're a terrible daughter-in-law. Are you trying to trouble me? I'm the one who's troubled. Please don't come over so often." "Shut up. I'm just visiting my son's house. I'm not here to see you, after all." Saying this, my mother-in-law plopped down on the sofa. "I don't want to see your face. I'll be here until Patrick comes back, so go somewhere else." I was utterly dumbfounded. And since I didn't want to see my mother-in-law's face either, I decided to stay in my room. Later, when my husband came back, he and my mother-in-law began to chat happily in the living room. Not wanting to be nagged again, I took the opportunity to slip out to the diner while my husband and mother-in-law were talking. After about 3 hours, I returned home. My husband was already asleep, and my mother-in-law was gone. So I went to my room, enjoying the quiet and peace. Then, I felt something was off. Wondering what it could be, I opened the closet and found that my favorite high-brand bag was missing. I was sure it was my mother-in-law's doing. She must have taken advantage of my absence to sneak into my room and steal it. Unbelievable. I immediately consulted with my father-in-law, who was speechless. No way, she wouldn't steal, would she? Initially, my father-in-law didn't fully believe me. But after I sent him a photo of me buying the bag and shared the serial number I had noted down for some reason, he said he would look into it while my mother-in-law was out. "Kim, I'm so sorry for having such a foolish wife." He apologized and met me at a cafe to return the bag. He apologized profusely. "Patrick and she are hopeless. I wish I could teach them a lesson." After saying that, my father-in-law seemed to have an idea. I was surprised by the plan he shared with me. Will it really work? Later, I decided to carry out my father-in-law's plan. My mother-in-law kept visiting as usual. Then, she suddenly glared at me. "You haven't been stealing, have you?" "Excuse me? What are you talking about?" "My bag has been stolen." "Oh boy, that bag was originally mine." That's unfortunate. I suspect it's you. Why would you think that? Humph. You don't seem well educated. Is that so? Should we report this to the police? What? No, that won't be necessary. She didn't want to involve the police because it would reveal that she was the thief. But she would probably rummage through my room again. This would be an opportunity for me. Then, when my husband came back, I deliberately went out. I had moved all valuables and my favorite expensive items to my parents' house. I had already talked to my parents about preparing for a divorce. So except for the bare essentials for daily use, there was nothing of value left in my room. Except for one thing. I purposely returned home earlier than usual. And just then, my mother-in-law was leaving. She and my husband were smirking. Seeing their expressions, I realized they had fallen into the trap. My father-in-law's plan seemed to be succeeding. And when my mother-in-law came back on the weekend, I stayed in my room, wanting nothing to do with her, until they called me out. Both had triumphant looks on their faces. I never thought you had saved up so much. What are you talking about? Oh, playing dumb now? About the money in the bank account. Really, keeping it a secret from Patrick makes you such a stingy woman. I graciously used it for our family instead. What? What do you mean? My husband and mother-in-law, grinning, began to lay out some quotation documents on the table. This is a quote for a two-family house. What? I've poured your savings of $300,000 that you had been saving into this. What? Did you already spend that money? Be grateful. We've put it to good use. Why would you do something like that without asking? It's your fault for hiding it. I combined it with my savings of $50,000 and paid in full. That way, there's no interest. I can't believe it. Deciding something so important on your own. Huh? You don't have the right to have an opinion or make decisions. Exactly. From now on, you will be our slave and do all the household chores. If you want to run away, you can. But don't forget most of it was bought with your money. It would be a waste to hand over $300,000 and just leave, wouldn't it? Laughing loudly were my husband and mother-in-law. The worst. I can't believe I married someone with such a terrible personality. Somewhere in my heart, I had hoped that my husband was just being influenced by his mother, and was actually a good person. But it seems that was not the case. Now, I have no regrets. I took out the divorce papers I had kept in the drawer and placed them in front of my husband. Please, let's get a divorce. My husband and mother-in-law were shocked. Are you serious? You'll lose so much. Sadly, I'm not losing anything. Huh? Did you guys even check the name on the bank book? Huh? After I said that, my husband hurriedly checked the name on the bank book. Then, both he and my mother-in-law looked at each other, surprised. What does this mean? Why is it in my name? My mother-in-law screamed that. Hey! What's this about? Kim. Did you steal my mom's bank book? Don't say such terrible things. I was just keeping it for your father. Despite what I said, my husband and mother-in-law didn't believe me. Don't mess with us. That can't be true. Exactly. You thief. We'll take you to the police. Seeing they had lost, they changed their attitude. Such low standards. You're welcome to consult the police. At that time, I'll also submit the footage from the security camera I had hidden in my room. It clearly shows you two breaking into my safe and taking what's inside. When I said that, my husband and mother-in-law's faces turned pale. But you stealing my mom's bank book is also a crime, isn't it? Exactly. You're going down with us. As they screamed that, my father-in-law arrived. Actually, I had contacted him when my husband called me to the living room. Dad. Listen to this. Kim stole Mom's bank book. This woman is a thief. Quiet. Both of you, be quiet. Startled by my father-in-law's shout, my husband and mother-in-law froze. I had Kim hold onto your bank book. Why would you do such a thing? Because you and Patrick have been making Kim's life miserable. Not only bullying your daughter-in-law, but to think you'd steal a bag. Shameful. Excuse me? What are you talking about? Playing dumb is useless. I returned that bag to Kim. That's... My mother-in-law was shocked to find out my father-in-law knew everything. Then, why did you have Kim hold on to that bank book? Someone who would steal a bag without a second thought would surely try to open a safe if they found one. That was a trap set to test you. But I never expected you to go as far as building a house. My father-in-law looked utterly disappointed that $300,000 was transferred as a division of assets because I decided to divorce you. Knowing you, I thought you'd mistakenly spend it like water. So I planned to keep it in the safe until all procedures were finished. My mother-in-law's face turned pale at my father-in-law's words. Huh? Divorce. I've had enough. You've done whatever you pleased for too long. From now on, you can live however you like alone. Wait a minute. So? I've already spent all the money given to me as part of the property division. It seems so. But that's what you deserve. I have properly divided the property. I won't give a single penny more. What? What am I supposed to do if I'm left with nothing after the divorce? You have a house, so you'll be fine. Despite the mother-in-law's pleas, the father-in-law coldly dismissed her and thrust the divorce papers at her. My husband watched with his mouth agape. I then handed the divorce papers to my husband. Why are you just standing there? Hurry up and sign. This. Are we really going to get divorced? Of course. And there's still more I need to claim from you. What? I have recorded all the verbal abuse you and your mother have thrown at me. After consulting with a lawyer, I was told I could claim damages for emotional abuse. That's... I also know about your affair. What? I have evidence photos from the detective agency. So, I'll also be claiming damages for the affair. According to the lawyer, I can claim about $50,000 from you. What? Wait a minute. I don't have any savings left because I contributed $50,000 to buying the house. There's a thing called installment payments, so that'll do. This. My money. Thus, my divorce from my husband was successfully finalized. Through the lawyer, I was able to receive the compensation in full. It seems the father-in-law was also able to divorce the mother-in-law. My husband and mother-in-law ended up losing all their savings because they mistakenly thought they were using my money to build a house. They considered selling the house, but its value had dropped to about half of what they paid for, making it too much of a loss to sell. The mother-in-law is not yet of age to receive a pension, and my former husband was demoted and sent to the countryside by his company after the affair was discovered, resulting in a pay cut. Despite having bought a house, he's now living in a cheap company apartment in the countryside, paying compensation. The former mother-in-law, despite having a grand house, can't afford luxuries and has to work part-time to make ends meet, leading a frugal life. Meanwhile, I have a comfortable life due to the money I've saved up since before I was married. For now, I think I'll steer clear of relationships, continue saving, and start investing to increase my assets. Ryan was kind while we were dating, but after we got married, he started to verbally abuse me along with Ashley. I endured their mistreatment while saving up for Ashley's college funds. Eventually, when Ashley received her college acceptance letter, we decided to celebrate it along with Ryan's promotion. When I returned from shopping, for some reason, trash bags filled with my books and clothes were left in the yard. Going to the bedroom, I found Ryan, Ashley, and my mother-in-law stuffing my belongings into trash bags. Just leave already. We can't invite Grandma over because there isn't enough room with you sticking around. Exactly. We don't need a failed wife. We'll just take the college funds. Ryan laughed, shaking his shoulders. Get out, you bottom feeder earning $7 per hour.
Bye.
Useless mom. Something inside me snapped. Then I'll leave. I went to the yard and carried the remaining trash bags to my car. Sitting in the driver's seat, tears of frustration overflowed. Biting my lip, I vowed in my heart, I won't let this go. Remember this. I am Wendy, a 50-year-old housewife. 10 years ago, I met Ryan, a 40-year-old, through work, and we got along well as we worked together. To me, who was shy, the cheerful and friendly Ryan seemed dazzling. So, when he confessed, I was bewildered, wondering, am I good enough? During one of our dates, he revealed he had an 8-year-old daughter. I was honestly surprised since I only knew he was divorced. But I quickly became friends with his daughter, Ashley, who was affectionate and innocent. We had a modest wedding, and our married life started smoothly. However, the happy life did not last long. I lost my parents to illness during my student days and was raised by my aunt and uncle, who ran a company. After accepting Ryan's proposal, I introduced him to my aunt and uncle. After receiving their approval for our marriage, we next visited Ryan's parents to greet them. Learning that I was raised by my aunt and uncle, my mother-in-law clearly seemed displeased. Perhaps that was one reason, but after marriage, she started to throw snide remarks at me. She would suddenly come over and nitpick at everything. Wendy, there was a hair in the corner of the stairs. The bathroom mirror is dirty. Aren't you cleaning it every day? And then, she would often say, you're working even though you have a small child, with a scowl. Mother, these days everyone works even with small children. I switched to part-time so I can be home when Ashley comes back. When I gently countered, my mother-in-law glared at me. Talking back to your mother-in-law, what an impudent daughter-in-law. Though I never heard the reason for his divorce. I imagined that my mother-in-law's meddling was the cause. Now, Mom. If both of us work, we can save up for Ashley's college funds faster. At first, Ryan stood up for me, but as years passed, he, like his mother, started verbally abusing me. You come back from work half-day, and this is the meal you prepare? Don't you care to comfort your husband who returns home tired? I'm sorry, but it's hard to prepare 3 dishes every day besides the main one. You're just lazy. Everyone does it. My mother-in-law, who was a full-time housewife, never used store-bought ready meals and imposed the same rule on me. So, I made time for meal prep late at night or on weekends when the family was asleep. Just when I thought the issue was resolved, Ryan started insisting. I want to save money, so I'll bring lunch to work. Of course, I had to prepare it. And, as expected, he complained about the lunch too. The lunch has frozen food in it. The main dish is leftovers from dinner. You're cutting corners too much. Preparing all the small dishes by hand is hard. Don't talk back, wife. You know I hate ready-made meals. Is this your way of annoying me? Ryan raised his voice. No more frozen or ready-made meals from now on. But it's the wife's duty to prepare meals considering the family's health. Do you want to make me and Ashley sick? You're terrible. I'm sorry. I'll do as you say from now on. Resisting would only result in hours of sarcasm, so it was better to comply quietly. It meant less time for myself, but there was no helping it. In fact, I had a secret pleasure. After Ashley and Ryan went to sleep, I would jot down various ideas in a notebook, fantasizing about creating something useful or fun. As a child, I received an award for a presentation during summer vacation research. It was a hobby I kept secret from the two of them. Thinking about useful items or fun products was the perfect stress reliever. Complaints weren't only from my mother-in-law and Ryan. Initially, Ashley seemed like an innocent and cute child. But as she reached the upper grades of elementary school, she began to act selfishly. Depending on her mood, she would cling to me or beg for extra allowance. Then she would verbally abuse me, make fun of me in front of her friends, or ignore me. Days when I was worn out from being at Ashley's beck and call increased. Seeing Ryan mistreat me, Ashley began to mimic him for fun. It's just adolescence, after all. To Ashley, I was the woman Dad brought home. It's natural for her to rebel. If she wouldn't warm up to me, I thought I should try harder to get along with her. I made an effort to empathize with Ashley instead of scolding her outright for bad behavior. Even when she hurled insults, I didn't snap back but calmly explained, "That's not how you talk to someone older than you." I always attended school events and helped with homework after returning from work. If she was sick, I took her to the doctor and took time off work to care for her. I had no experience raising children. Although she wasn't my biological child, I poured love into raising her because she was the child of the person I loved. However, it seemed my efforts didn't reach Ashley. Eventually, Ashley entered high school and needed lunch. Unlike Ryan's preference for volume, a high school girl's lunch needed to be colorful and fancy. I woke up at 5 a.m. every morning to carefully prepare her lunch. Put fried chicken in tomorrow's lunch. I'll have a hamburger, please. Both of them would request different dishes, making it quite difficult. Yet, they often came back with their lunches untouched. When asked why, they casually said, "I felt like having pizza today. I stopped by the store and suddenly wanted bread. I woke up at 5 a.m. to make it. I wanted you to eat at least a little bit." When I inadvertently let this slip, both of them quickly became sullen. You change your mood sometimes, don't you? Don't be so sanctimonious, it's annoying. If you're a mother, making your child's lunch is the least you can do, right? Ashley's tone, full of hostility, pained me more than Ryan's. I'm sorry, My apology emboldened Ryan. Don't get cocky just because you made lunch. It's nothing special.
Yeah.
You should be grateful we even eat it every day. Complaints about too many vegetables, too strong flavors, and now this. I felt more sadness than anger. Talking with Ashley and Ryan always made me feel miserable. Because they were like this, the promise of sharing household chores made at the beginning of our marriage was, of course, broken. Even though you say we're both working, you come home midday. That doesn't count as work. We come home in the evening. It's only natural for the person with the most free time to do the chores. I'm not free at all. By the time I finish cleaning and preparing dinner after coming home, it's already night. Even when I protested, it fell on deaf ears. And on weekends, were they helping? Ryan and Ashley would either lounge around with their phones, lying on the sofa, or shut themselves in their rooms playing games. It was as if I, bustling about, didn't exist in their field of vision. Old lady, bring me some juice. I'll have coffee. Bring it to the living room, I'm playing games with Ashley. Ashley still called me a old lady instead of mom. I have a women's association meeting after dinner. Could you help out a bit? When I couldn't bear it any longer and spoke up, Ryan clicked his tongue. Huh? Let us rest at least on weekends. You see, I'm playing with Dad, right? Do you intend to disturb our bonding time? But we're strangers to you. So it can't be helped. The word strangers pierced my heart like a blade. What's with that face? Got a complaint? Ryan showed his intimidation. Who do you think allows you to live in this house? A disposable part-timer like you challenging me is 100 years too early. Faced with their attacks, I bit my lip and swallowed my complaints. Ryan, despite his bluster, was just a section chief in a small to medium-sized company. So his income wasn't high. He earned more than me, a part-timer, but that was about it. Ryan's domineering attitude towards me might also stem from holding the purse strings. Before we got married, I had mentioned, I'm not confident in managing finances. Then I'll manage it. That way, Wendy, you can rest easy. Fooled by his refreshing smile, I agreed to hand over my entire salary to Ryan. From our combined salaries, he would give me money for living expenses and Ashley's college fund. Despite Ryan's salary increasing over the years, the household budget I was given kept decreasing. Recently, I was only handed $1,000, from which I had to save half for college expenses and use the rest for groceries, daily necessities, and miscellaneous expenses. I wish I could have an extra $500. I'd also like some pocket money for myself. A housewife doesn't need pocket money. Put $500 for Ashley's education expenses into the account first. I'll be checking it every month. I stood my ground against Ryan's command. Ryan, you often buy luxury watches and designer suits. You're always nagging me to save money and hesitating to spend. It seems like you're giving Ashley a lot of pocket money too. Why am I the only one who can't buy what I want? I pleaded desperately with Ryan, unable to accept the situation. I work too. It's ridiculous that I need my husband's permission to buy clothes or go to the hair salon. Both Ashley and I have our social obligations. You don't need those mommy friends, do you? You dressing up is just a waste of money anyway. Ashley chimed in, pleased. Kids cost money. Stop complaining. Fine, I'll increase my work hours. The extra I earn can be my pocket money, right? Ryan was appalled. Of course not. You can't even manage the household chores perfectly as it is. What will happen if you neglect them even more? Mom would oppose it too. Mentioning his mother, I gave up on arguing. It's hard for me, who is not good at speaking up and is timid, to stand up to the three of them. But somewhere in my heart, I harbored a faint hope. If Ashley got accepted into college and started enjoying her campus life, perhaps her attitude towards me would soften? Seeing Ashley going to school happily with the money I saved, maybe Ryan would start treating me with more respect. However, my hopes were quickly dashed. When the harsh winter began to ease, Ashley's acceptance letter arrived. A few days later, Ryan came home with news that made Ashley cheer. Dad, you're becoming a manager? That's so cool. I got the provisional notice, but now it's confirmed. My salary and bonus will skyrocket. I listened, feeling disheartened. Not a single penny would come my way. I was sure to be pressured into saving as always.
Yay!
Buy me a fancy bag to celebrate. Of course. Tomorrow, let's call Mom over for a celebration dinner. Wendy, prepare a feast. It has to be homemade, of course. Watching the two of them call his mother, I sighed quietly. Well, at least this time it seemed like I might enjoy some peace without their usual snide remarks. The next day, I went to the supermarket to buy ingredients for steak and soup despite the rainy weather. Ashley and Ryan were in high spirits from the morning. Arriving home and getting out of the car, I noticed garbage bags left out in the rain, which weren't there when we left. Feeling a bad premonition, I went to check and was shocked to find my clothes inside. I quickly tied the bags and went inside to confront Ryan and Ashley, only to find my mother-in-law's shoes at the entrance. Hearing noises from the upstairs bedroom, I ran up to find Ryan, Ashley, and my mother-in-law cheerfully throwing my books and clothes into garbage bags. "What are you doing?" "Oh, you're back? Can't you see? We're throwing out trash. Old lady's stuff is all cheap junk anyway." I snatched the garbage bags from the three, who continued their task. "Stop. Don't do this without my permission. It doesn't matter. You're no longer needed." "What?" I, stunned, heard the three of them continue. "We've already paid the entrance fee for college, right? And we've saved up $70,000 for 4 years of tuition fees. Your role as an ATM is over. It's impressive how you saved up with just a $7 hourly wage. My forcing you to save shows my skill." I stared at Ryan, dumbfounded. Why is he acting as if it's his achievement? Ryan proudly continued. "After kicking out my previous wife, I wanted to bring Mom here. But first, I thought of saving up for college. Finding a submissive woman to save money meant Ashley and I didn't have to cut back. You seemed submissive enough and just right to double as a housekeeper. But Dad, we were wrong about her." Ashley puffed out her cheeks. "She can't do household chores perfectly, lectures me even though she's an outsider. Totally useless." My mother-in-law glared in agreement. "Ryan married you off despite you being an orphan and older. You should be more grateful to Ryan instead of constantly complaining." Surrounded by the three, they had their say. "So, leave as soon as you can. We can't invite Grandma over with you taking up space." "Exactly. We don't need a failed wife. We'll just take the money." Pushing the garbage bag towards me, Ryan smirked. "A bottom feeder with an hourly wage of $7 should get out."
Bye. Bye.
Useless mom. Something inside me snapped. "Then I'll leave." I grabbed my valuables, transferred my clothes and books from the garbage bag into a suitcase, and left the room. Heading to the yard, I also loaded the rain-soaked garbage bags into the car. Sitting in the driver's seat, tears of frustration overflowed. From the start, Ryan never had any affection for me. To be considered nothing more than a housekeeper and an ATM. How much more could he demean me? I felt like my head was going to explode with anger. Biting my lip, I swore in my heart, "I won't let this end here. You'll remember this." Desperate to get away from those three as soon as possible, I drove a bit before stopping on the shoulder of the road to call my uncle. Without holding back on the details, I vented everything to him. He was furious and immediately arranged for an available room in a bachelor's dormitory for me to use until I found a new place. I decided to take him up on his kindness. Fortunately, only my clothes were wet from the rain, so I dried them at a nearby laundromat and took them to my room. After storing my clothes in the built-in chest and organizing my valuables, I gradually began to feel calmer. During our courtship, Ryan was truly kind, so I deluded myself into believing he cherished me. Even after his demeanor changed post-marriage, I kept telling myself, "He's actually a kind person. Things will eventually return to how they were. With time, Ashley and I can become closer." And regarding my mother-in-law, it's natural for there to be discord between a mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. Being confronted with reality, I finally woke up. No matter how much I tried to reach out or made an effort, it was all futile with those people. They would surely receive the consequences for trampling over my feelings. First, I visited my uncle's company to ask for a recommendation for a good lawyer. I also went to the municipal office to pick up divorce papers and completed various procedures. Eventually, I received a message from Ryan stating he had submitted the divorce papers. After I became an unwanted person and was out of their lives. Neither Ashley nor my mother-in-law bothered to call even once. A month of peaceful days passed before I heard from Ryan again. While I was working on my computer, I decided to ignore the call when I saw his name displayed on my mobile screen. I had been expecting it around this time, but I was busy. After letting it go for a while, his tearful voice came through the voicemail. "Wendy, please, answer the phone. Something terrible has happened." After the call was disconnected, it continued to ring endlessly. "Please pick up soon. Help us, please. If things stay like this, it's going to be bad." With every transition to voicemail, Ryan left messages crying, relentlessly calling like a ghost. Overwhelmed by his persistence, I finally decided to answer the phone. "What do you want?" "Wendy. What have you done? I'm busy. Can you get to the point?" Ryan gasped on the other side of the phone. My sharp tone seemed to have intimidated him.
Yeah.
I called Ashley's university. Sniffling, Ryan explained his reason for calling. Then, they told me she has withdrawn her enrollment. So she is not a student here. What's going on? Wendy replied, exactly as you were told. She stated calmly. I was the one who called to withdraw her enrollment. The enrollment preparation fee is gone. But the tuition fees were refunded to my account, which is helpful. Withdrawal? Don't make decisions on your own. He shouted at me. Poor thing. She worked hard studying to get into college. Oh, I had no idea. I said with irony. With the pocket money you gave her. She was too busy going to karaoke until morning and attending concerts. Hardly the behavior of a student preparing for exams. Well, that's... He faltered. I've never once seen her studying. So, you chose a college where money alone would suffice for admission? She studied when you weren't looking. Besides, college is not just about studying, there are other things to learn too. You've taken away that opportunity. Ryan retorted, clearly annoyed. Oh, my apologies. Perhaps it would have somewhat improved her twisted character. After I responded with a heavy dose of sarcasm, Ryan asked in bewilderment. Why are you doing this? Do you have a grudge against us? I rattled off in response to his absurd question. She told me to leave quickly, calling me a useless mother. Who does she think enabled her education? Do you know how much effort I put into saving that money? Holding on to those words shows how narrow-minded you are. Well, there's money in the account, right? Yes. The call abruptly ended. Sighing, I went back to work on my computer. However, within an hour, the phone rang again. Reluctantly answering, I was met with Ryan's frantic shouting. Why can't I withdraw the money from your account? You couldn't withdraw it? Feigning ignorance, Ryan began to rant and rave. When I tried to withdraw at the bank, they refused me at the counter. Of course. I changed the account holder's name. You can't just do that. Wait, Wendy, where are you? Who knows? Please, change it again. Ryan's voice was desperate. Without it, Ashley will have a hard time attending a different college next year. Please return Ashley's money. Return? That $70,000 is my money. I couldn't help but laugh in disbelief. Besides, you're always splurging on luxury items. Shouldn't you easily be able to afford your darling daughter's tuition? I sarcastically said to Ryan, who is becoming flustered. I need money because I live at the bottom. So, the next section chief, you should prepare it, or ask your beloved mother to help out. Sure, my salary will increase when I become a section chief. But I'm currently drowning in debt. And Mom is living on her pension. Drowning in debt? What do you mean? Ryan hesitated, then muttered. Prideful as he is, Ryan wouldn't want me to grasp any of his weaknesses. However, perhaps realizing his bluster was meaningless now, Ryan pleaded. Both Mom and I are going through a lot. So please, at least spare us the compensation. Oh, how tough for you. But I will be claiming the compensation in due course. Take care. I emphasized my point and hung up the phone. The day after being kicked out, I went to the bank and changed the registered account holder's name, anticipating Ryan might try to withdraw money from my account. As soon as he learned about the college withdrawal, if Ashley had been a serious student, canceling her college enrollment would have pained me. However, given her frequent indulgence in leisure, I chose this path without hesitation. That evening, I received a voicemail from Ashley, filled with curses aimed at me, which I promptly deleted. Later, through the lawyer my uncle introduced, I filed a claim for compensation against Ryan, who predictably protested. You know I don't have money, yet you demand compensation. What a vile person. Why should I even pay? I've provided for Wendy with my earnings, treated a failed wife kindly, and never cheated. What's there to complain about? It's outrageous to withdraw from college and abscond with the money. I should be the one receiving compensation. Deciding to wait until Ryan's mindset changed, I pondered his litany of excuses. Months later, Ryan's mother, sobbing, called me. Wendy, help me, please. Her tone was as haughty as ever, a trait unlikely to change. Long time no see. What's the matter? Predicting her reason, I asked in a deliberately leisurely tone. I've been told to vacate this house. Can't be helped. It's my house, after all. What? My mother-in-law was flabbergasted. Didn't Ryan tell you? It's the house I got when I started working, given to me by my aunt and uncle. I invited Ryan and Ashley, who were living in an apartment at the time, to live there. So, it's registered in my name. This is the first I've heard. Stunned, she remained silent on the other end. I see. Well, anyway. My uncle was furious when he found out I was kicked out, and said he'd proceed with selling the house. So, I asked him to. I'm not kind enough to let the people who kicked me out live there for free. Are you really going to sell it? Yes. There's a viewing scheduled for this weekend, so please vacate by then. That's impossible. My mother-in-law shouted. I was kicked out in 10 minutes. From my own house. My mother-in-law was at a loss for words. The sale of the house is final. Please move out soon to avoid inconvenience to the real estate agency and potential buyers. Is Ryan there? Ryan seemed to have been listening to the exchange nearby. Ryan answered the phone in place of his mother. What do you want? I took a deep breath and spoke in a low voice. Who do you think allowed you to live in that house? I asked with a half smile as Ryan was left speechless. Feels good. How does it feel to hear that line? I won't pay the compensation. See if you can take it. You were told to discuss this through the lawyer, right? Ryan continued to rant despite my weariness. You're just trying to extort compensation because you can't make it on your low salary. Pathetic lowlife woman. But I won't pay. Are you sure you want to be so confident? I said with a mixture of astonishment. I have plenty of evidence. The verbal abuse from you, Ashley, and your mother is all recorded or noted in my diary. Not to mention your frivolous spending on luxury items while forcing me to save. There's no escaping it. It's natural for a mother to save for her child. And a wife should obey her husband. Exactly. If you have a problem, earn more than me. They both made a fuss in a vulgar manner. Return the college funds, thief. If you really don't return it, I'll sue. Suit yourself. I've had enough of you too. Ashley interjected over the phone, quieting both her grandmother and Ryan. I'm just so mad at her. Stealing a daughter's crucial college fund. That's the lowest a parent can go. Ashley, you're right. You were looking forward to college so much. I can't imagine how disappointed you must be. It's just so sad. Ryan, sounding almost tearful. But it's okay. There's always next year. And once Dad becomes a manager, his salary will increase, and our lives will be easier. That's true. Ryan exclaimed joyfully. So, let's stop lowering ourselves to her. Let's hand over the house and move to a condominium quietly. If Ashley says so. My mother-in-law reluctantly muttered. Be grateful for Ashley's kindness.
Yeah.
I'm hanging up now. Feeling fed up, I ended the call. The next call came the following day while I was having coffee in a room at my uncle's company. Anticipating the topic. And not wanting to deal with them potentially showing up at the company. I reluctantly answered. What have you done? Ryan was sobbing. Sniffling and with a voice like a scream, he asked. My promotion got cancelled. And on top of that, I've been demoted. They say I'm going from a section chief to a regular employee. And have to go work at a subcontracting factory. What's going on? I sighed deeply. He really hadn't understood anything. You know about Morgan Industries, right? Of course. It's a hugely famous discount retail chain with international branches. It's also one of our company's major clients. You made the chairman upset. Huh? Ryan uttered dumbfounded. He was about to end the business with your company. But he reconsidered for my sake, so as not to cause your company trouble. I emphasized. You should be glad you weren't fired. I've never met the chairman. The chairman of Morgan is my uncle. After a brief silence, Ryan's outcry filled the room. I grimaced at the noise and pulled the phone away from my ear. You should have told me sooner. My uncle introduced himself during our pre-marriage meeting. Disbelief flooded me at Ryan's lack of attention. Ryan, momentarily stopping his crying, then pleaded. Come on, mediate for me. It was just a little marital spat. If I become a regular employee, my salary will decrease. And Ashley won't respect me anymore. No. You've made your bed. I coldly stated. Is that all? I'm hanging up. What's with the attitude, coming from someone at the bottom? As Ryan shouted in anger, someone knocked on the room door. Excuse me, President. Oh, sorry. It's fine, I'm about to hang up. President? To the bewildered Ryan, I conveyed the message with a smile. Oh, I haven't mentioned it, have I? I'm the president of Morgan. What? The one with annual sales of $500 million. To be precise, I'm the president of the U.S. branch. Ryan fell silent, likely imagining his current predicament. People often become speechless from too much shock. That's a bad joke. Weren't you earning an hourly wage of $7 just a while ago? That was from a salary slip you found in the bedroom, right? You didn't check the date. It's from 10 years ago when I first helped my uncle's company. I explained while holding back laughter. I kept it as a memento. The current minimum wage is over $10 in reality. You're really out of touch with America's economic situation. Ryan, lost for words, then spitefully said, "Shut up. Lucky you. Having rich relatives means even a useless mother can become a president. Do you think the position of president just falls into the lap of a niece?" I sighed, tired of the argument. I've been developing product ideas for a while. Some of my proposals were accepted at Morgan's planning meetings and became hit products. I was recognized for those achievements. You were doing all that behind my back. Do I need your permission for everything? After sighing, I explained the background. I wanted to help my uncle, so I studied business administration in college. For several years, under my uncle's direction, I've been attending board meetings and business seminars. It's all the result of my efforts. Ryan was left speechless. I used the license fees from a patented stationery item to fund Ashley's college expenses. Otherwise, it would have been impossible to cover both living expenses and savings from my salary alone. Well, if you have that much money, you don't need compensation then. My mother-in-law interjected. It seemed Ryan had put the phone on speaker so his mother could listen in. Ashley might be listening too. I just learned that there's supposed to be a division of property when you divorce, right? You have an obligation to give half of the money you earn to Ryan. Grandma knows her stuff. I couldn't help but laugh at my mother-in-law's confidence. What's so funny? Mother, the division of property isn't an obligation, it's a right that each spouse has. So, it's also possible to waive that right. Oh. I could almost see my mother-in-law tilting her head in confusion over the phone. I'm refusing it, so not a single penny will go to Ryan. If you don't like it, we can settle it in court, but I'm sure I'll win. What? Mom's the president of Morgan, and I won't get a single penny? That's not fair. Ashley sounded disappointed. Ryan. Remarry Wendy now. Being the husband of a president means you can live in luxury. Forget your pride, this isn't the time for that. Ryan agreed with his mother's urging.
Yeah.
Mom's right. Wendy, I apologize for everything in the past. Let's start over. I won't treat you like a maid anymore. Mom. I won't call you useless anymore. So, please come back. And I want to live in a high-rise condo. Faced with their audacity, my anger turned into laughter. I can earn enough on my own, so I don't need a useless husband. As for the compensation, it will be deposited into my account monthly. If you can't pay, I'll seize your assets, so please take note. Amid their shouting over the phone, I hung up and blocked Ryan, Ashley, and my mother-in-law's contacts. Ryan ended up getting fired from the subcontracting company due to his arrogance and conflicts with other employees. Struggling with living expenses, debt, and compensation payments. He's been working non-stop at factories on weekdays and restaurants on weekends. Unable to afford living in the house anymore. Ryan, Ashley, and my mother-in-law moved to a rundown apartment. Ashley, who had planned to enjoy her college life, lost all motivation to study or work and spent her days lazing around at home. My mother-in-law, who doesn't do any household chores, often ridicules Ryan with Ashley for his low salary, leading to constant quarrels. Having secretly saved enough money, I moved into a high-rise condo and live a busy life. Initially worried that being promoted from a regular employee to president might cause resentment among the staff, Everyone welcomed me warmly. My contributions to the company through successful product ideas have been significant, and the executives cover my areas of inexperience. No longer needing to worry about Ryan or Ashley's opinions. I'm enjoying a free and fulfilling life. Moving forward, I plan to value myself and enrich both my work and personal life.